Hey, I'm Christian Aluas, creator of Big Boss Comic and author of It's a Living Surviving as a Freelancer in the 21st Century. And I'm looking forward to coming on this Thursday on IzzyVerse and chatting with you guys about freelancing in the comic book business and my upcoming book, which is going to be really awesome and cool. So looking forward to it. See you soon.
Hey guys, welcome back to the IzzyVerse. I'm glad you guys can make it. I'm so happy to see you today, this evening, as we're going to talk to our latest guest. Before we get started, you know what I got to do. I got to make some plugs for you guys. So, again, as you now know, Comic Pull List is happening on Sundays now. This Sunday I wasn't able to do it because I had so much going on during the weekend. I wasn't able to do it this Sunday, but the Comic Pull List is up now. You could go check it out. You can see what books came out this week. Also, the new ones coming out this Sunday. I promise to you, I'll get it out to you guys this Sunday. So I'm excited to share with you what new books are coming in. One thing I do want to share with everybody that's watching is that we did hit our goal of 750 this weekend. So I'm really happy that we hit our 750 goal. Now our goal is to hit that 800 subscribers. So we're going to be doing a new contest very shortly. I mentioned the Spawn comic book that we're going to be giving away. I think I might be giving away something else. So I'm excited to share with you what that's going to be shortly. But as promised, I have Aquaman #1. Now you can't see it because of the nice little green screen here because there's a green cover, right? But I promised you guys that I was going to give this book out, and there will be a sketch with this comic book. And I'm happy to say that we do have a contest winner. And how you doing, Didi? I'm happy to say, Didi, that our contest winner for our show is none other than Didi. Congratulations. I'm really happy that you are the winner for this sketch. I know that you were really pumped in winning this, but you won it. Congratulations. You are going to get this sketch comic book, and we're going to be working something out so I could get you this book to you. So, Didi, if you're watching, which I know you are, and there you are, congratulations. I'm really, really happy that you are our winner for this comic book. So again, I want to share with you my thoughts. It was a great weekend, Bronx Comic Book Show. I just want to thank everybody that was in attendance. Special thanks to Lone Wolf, Jazz Collectibles, Fury Comics. Oh my goodness, so many I can't even name them all, but John, Mark, Nate, everybody that joined us. It's Chris, who was with us as well. Thank you all for joining us for the Bronx Comic Book Show. It was a great show, and I had a blast, and I can't wait for the next one to happen. Looking forward to it. All right. Without further ado, I want to introduce to you all my guest for this evening. He is an artist, illustrator, author. He's written a book about freelancing. His name is Christian Aluas. I might have messed up his name, but he'll tell me if I messed it up. Let's introduce him to the show. Chris, how's it going? You're currently on mute. Let me unmute you. There you go.
Hey, Izzy. I'm doing great. And you were the farthest so far in getting my name right. That's like the worst I've heard so far.
I am known for butchering names, so I deeply humbly
What makes
apologize.
it so difficult? I don't understand.
I don't know, because it sounds a little different. Like the Christian part, I get. It's how you say your last name again?
Aluas.
Aluas.
Well, the thing is, on the book cover, in some other covers, I put the cedilla underneath, and then that S has a SH sound, like Sean.
Yeah.
So I
At
don't know.
first,
I
I
kind
actually
of
thought that was a typo, believe it or not. I really did think that was a typo when I
yeah.
first saw it. So, and
I don't
there
know
she
if I
goes.
should leave it out.
There you go, Didi. You're very welcome. We will discuss how I will get this book out to you, but before I do get it out, I want to make sure that the drawing's in there. So that you're gonna get a sketch comic. I talked to a few people on what the comic's gonna look like. It's gonna look great. Also, we got Jorge Pacheco. How you doing, Jorge? What's going on, man? All right, Chris.
All right, cool.
Let's talk.
Yeah.
Right. Before we get talking about your work, we definitely have to take the time right now to address something that happened within the comic book community. We lost a great artist this today. In fact, the news just came out today that Tim Sale, the artist behind The Long Halloween, has passed away. Um,
Yeah, I heard about that. That's
yeah,
great.
he passed away. He was young. He was 66. And just, he's an Eisner Award winning artist. He is known for the Batman the Dark Halloween. He's also known for other titles, very famously for the color books, as we call them, from Marvel. He did Spider-Man Blue. He did Daredevil Yellow, which was the first color book. He did Incredible Hulk Gray. He did Captain America White. And everybody knows his work for Superman for all seasons. Um, what can you tell me about what you know about Tim Sale? I know we were talking a little bit about his style in particular.
Well, over the years, I mostly just came across his work as cover art or images, and I can't recall the stories that I read. I think he had a short story in Batman Black and White. I
Mhm.
think I thumbed through that early Grendel. I know that he started out in indie comics, so I just love to look at his work, and I'm kind of a visual guy. And even when I was reading comics when I was younger, 'cause I was always following artists, and he was the one that came out after the image guys that became popular after that. And it's surprising that you say he was 65 or 60
66.
some. Yeah, because I pictured him a lot younger, but I guess because he was indie for so long, he came to popularity in the mainstream comics much later.
Yeah. He was a pioneer of his time, really, because he introduced ink wash in an era that was very dominated by the cross hatching, the very dynamic style of the 90s, right?
Hmm.
The styles that was brought us by Jim Lee, Todd McFarlane, Rob Liefeld, Mark Silvestri, the image guys as we
Hmm.
call them, right? We know him as. He was one of those first superstar artists that came after the wave. But he's been in the business for a long time, and just like you said, he did a lot of indie stuff prior to that. Um, Most notably, is his take on illustration in comics was very different, and which made him a standout. We talked a little bit about standouts in comics, where
Hmm.
when you saw a Tim Sale book, you knew it was Tim Sale's.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like how he drew the Joker. He drew the Joker with this like extremely long chin, and but it was like perfect Joker. His Catwoman, his Batman was amazing to look at,
Yeah.
and it's such a shame that we lost him at such a young age. 66 is extremely young,
Yeah.
and
He,
we
Yeah, I was
go
just going
ahead.
to add his work, especially in this piece, you could kind of tell it's like a prettier Frank Miller.
Yeah, it's very influenced by Frank Miller. It's very noir in his style,
Yeah.
right? And again, he was responsible for the color books. They were not coloring books, but they were tones from color. Being Daredevil Yellow being the very first one, when him and Jeff Loeb got together and said, "Hey, let's do a story on Daredevil Yellow," like his first year, because his style had that noir aesthetic to it. They utilized it for, I guess you could say, retro books, retro titles, right? Daredevil Yellow, Incredible Hulk Gray, Spider-Man Blue, where they focused on their early careers as superheroes, and he did the same thing with Superman for all seasons. Um,
I believe he handled his own coloring as well.
Yeah, he did. He did, and again, Jim Lee, and for example, when he did Batman Hush,
Mm.
he credited Tim Sale for learning ink washing. So there's a lot of pages within Batman Hush that Jim Lee decided to do some ink washing that Scott Williams actually didn't have a hand in it.
Mm.
But he was credited, he credited Tim Sales for learning how to do that style and being more creative in comic book art. So
Mhm.
definitely going to miss Tim Sale.
Yeah.
We're going to take this moment now to give him his time. So we're going to just do a moment of silence for him now. All right. Well, with that said, let's now have a formal introduction of Kristen. So, talk to me a little bit about how you got started. That's something I always love asking people. How did it all begin? I know you mentioned it a lot in your book when I was reading your book and listening to your book with your own audio voice. So talk to me a little bit about the beginnings.
Sure. The book you're talking about is It's a Living.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um, well, I mean, I was always an artist, but one thing that's kind of unique, maybe that's why my name is slightly more unique. It's Christian Aluas. It's a Romanian name. I was born in Romania during communist time, and my father initially escaped communist Romania, which was like by Ceausescu, and then he brought us over, and then we came to Canada. So I grew up in Canada as an immigrant boy, and uh, and then eventually moved to the U.S. And I started my career in Canada. So I mean, I was always an artist. In Canada, at a garage sale, I was introduced to comic books. I remember my first comic books. I believe it was like Master of Kung Fu by Paul Galassi and John Byrne's Superman. And then from there it went on. So my initial love was for comics. When I was in high school, I published my first zine slash comic. Initially, it started with a buddy of mine, and we sold it for $1 around school. And then, as it happens sometimes with professional artists, some of them fall at the wayside. They don't really, I don't know what it is, but not everybody's made of the same cloth to pursue it full time. So I ended up finishing that on my own, and then I peddled it around to local comic shops in Ottawa, Canada. And that was when I was 18. It was even before I finished high school. Then I studied animation in college in Ottawa. Then in Montreal, I studied creative writing and art history and studio art. And I came back from university. I was working in some animation studios. I worked with John Crick-Falusi that worked, at the time, he was doing Ripping Friends, but he's known as the creator of Ren and Stimpy.
Mm-hmm.
So he had moved back to Ottawa, which was his hometown, and I happened to live in Ottawa. And then so he gave me some interesting pointers. I learned a few things in the short period that I worked with him. And then I have kind of a fun story, which I may not list in the book, but I worked on Le Triplet de Belleville, and I was actually fired from that for sleeping on my desk. But Le Triplet de Belleville, maybe people would know it as the Triplets of Belleville. It's a very
Mm-hmm.
famous, award-winning feature film.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then basically, I had the option to work in studios, but I didn't want my name on a long list, and therefore I decided to quit all jobs, burn all bridges, and try to sell art in cafes. And then that didn't. I registered a sole proprietorship, which was a desktop publishing business. So I was self-publishing and publishing some other artists, but I didn't really have a lot of capital early on. And then I turned to online freelancing, and that's what It's a Living is a lot about. So it's kind of that transition. It talks a lot about that transitioning to working for yourself as a freelancer, and then online, in person, dealing with clients, small businesses, and making a living.
Yeah, because when I was first listening to the book, I was reading the book, then listening to the book. It reads a lot like an autobiography, and at the beginning, it talks about your upbringing and how you got in trouble in school with that one teacher. I remember hearing the story, and you were hanging out with the wrong crowd. And I was like, yeah, he sounds very familiar to me.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I had a very similar childhood, I guess, teenage life. I didn't get myself into major trouble. My level of trouble was just enough not to make it to jail. You know what I
yeah, yeah, yeah.
mean? So, but I did get myself in trouble quite a bit, in things like that. But what was really great to hear was that how you got out of that, going that way, especially with the curfew that your father gave you, and things like that. So, as much as the tough love that you got, it helped you in the long run in some way or another, based on what I was listening to kind of like get you in the school that you eventually ended up going, afterwards, and things like that. So that was good to listen to.
Well, yeah. Well, the story is that the the way I found myself at Canterbury Arts High School, which you had to apply to with a portfolio, was because I was going to get expelled from my previous school.
Yeah, exactly.
So I got called in because I threatened the teacher. The thing was that I was a bad kid because I was like, I'm not making excuses, but I've analyzed it. So I was a child of divorce, and my father, had troubles, and he did some drinking, and it was a very volatile, sensitive home life, and so I would rebel against authority anywhere I could, and that's what really got me in trouble. Even in university, I had the same issues. My teachers, they would say one thing, and I would challenge them on it. Um, I like to think that I've outgrown that to some extent, but I kind of have to keep it at bay. But I'm a grown up now. So, but yeah, I mean, uh, it was kind of lucky in a way that I
Mhm.
wound up at an arts high school because I got to thrive, and I think ultimately I would have. I don't know. It's hard to imagine any other course,
Mhm.
of life. So yeah. But what was the question?
No, I was just pondering what you were saying about your story and things like that. So, I don't even know there was a question, to be quite
Yeah.
honest
Okay.
with you. So now let's move fast forward a little bit, getting into the whole comics of it all. You did at one time had this publication that you did through Instagram, I saw, and that
Right.
was the Big Boss comic. So talk to me a little bit about the Big Boss comic, and more importantly, talk to me of why you made the decision to make it an Instagram comic book.
Okay. Yeah. That's a yeah. Thank you. That's a good segue. So I actually the high school comic was with this character, Big Boss, and that original comic. Kind of an interesting little side note is in the Billy Ireland Cartoon Museum at Ohio State University. So the original pages are there preserved, and you could go read them, I suppose, there. Um, but yeah, so this character, I did a 5 issue miniseries with a writer that helped write it and plot it, and then I wanted to do a follow up just to keep the IP, the intellectual property, kind of alive after I made a short live action film. So I did the 5 issue miniseries. Then, while I was living in Las Vegas, I self produced on Indiegogo a short, like 10-minute live action film with actors based on the character and some plot points from the original series. And I wanted to continue it. And as a way to motivate myself to get the project done, because I was working as a freelancer, uh, I thought, why don't I just like commit myself to drawing 5 panels a week? One panel each day, 5 days a week, and at a certain point, the story is going to kind of finish off. So after 13 months, I was able to compile like about a 75-page graphic novel. So it started as a tool to just self-motivate myself to get a new project done. And it was kind of also a tool to build social media.
Interesting. You mentioned that you did something. My screen is frozen. Okay, can you see me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay, so my screen just went frozen. So give me 1 second. I'm gonna fix that. I know exactly what happened.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for the Didi. Thanks for the cover
Yeah,
compliment.
so let's do a switch over here. That way you don't get this nice little frozen screen. So that's the beauty of having multiple cameras. And now you get to see a little bit of the green screen.
Oh, sweet.
There we go. See, live television. It's just the way it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right, let's fix that a little bit more. Awesome. All right, so one of the things I could say as an artist myself is how difficult it could be to do a panel at a time. You made the commitment of doing a panel a day. How difficult was it for one to get those panels out? Did you have the panels? Obviously, I'm thinking to myself that you had them already in your head and you just continue working from there. So you had to work chronologically in some way, did you?
Yeah. Well, there were actually a couple of reasons why I even chose Instagram, because I looked at other options like web comics were available. This was a few years ago. So I looked at a few options, but I liked the square format because I had an animation background. I looked at it as a story boarding sort of exercise as well. So so I printed out some storyboard pages like I used to do in animation, and they were not quite square but almost square, and then I would write the script that way by hand. And I plotted out and had drawn about 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks worth initially, and I had them drawn, and then I had another several pages just roughed on the storyboard. And then so that's what I started with, but then you get lazy, and then it caught up eventually. And then at the very end, I had like just rough notes, and then like the weekend before, I would rough in the panels, and then by Sunday night I would make sure I had that Monday panel at the least. Sometimes I would have Monday and Tuesday, and then that day sometime between freelancing, I would squeeze in that panel, and at least by the evening, like usually 10 or 11 that night at the latest, I would upload the panel.
Now, did you ever miss a panel?
No.
Oh, so you made the commitment and you hit every mark.
Oh yeah. No,
that's awesome. That is great to hear.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking to myself that moment where it's like, I just can't get this, and then you have to do that apology sometimes. You know what I mean? Because I've done that myself with this week, the pull list. I was unable. So on Saturday, I don't know what that was.
Oh, that's from outside.
I know. On
it's Saturday, my stomach. I'm hungry.
This past Saturday, when we were in the Bronx show, it was my intention to make a recording to put out for Sunday's pull list, and I never remembered to do it. I never remind myself to do it, nor did I take a lot of footage of the show, which, I got some photos here and then, and I was able to put them out. But then on Sunday, I went to tell my wife, I was like, honey, I don't have any videos. I got to make video. So I ended up grabbing some videos. Some friends of mine were able to send me some stuff from the show. And I was like, but I didn't have time to get it out. By the time I was almost ready, I still needed a major component. I was like, I can't get it out today. So I just did the blast like tomorrow. Promise you guys it'll be out tomorrow. And things like that. So it's good to hear that you hit the deadline. It was almost like a 24. You've heard of the 24-hour comic book, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a continuation of a 24-hour comic book, but each day you had to produce a panel a day, and that is a great project especially for someone that's starting to kind of like make sure you get your work done, because procrastination is something that is in this industry you definitely don't want to have.
Right.
Because a deadline is extremely important, especially for those of you who are interested in making comic books and interested in doing work. I have to let you know that deadlines are even more important than a perfect page,
Right.
right? Because a perfect page is great, but you got, if you have a deadline of doing 22 pages for a month, just because you got that one perfect page, those other 21 pages need to happen, and you won't get work if that's how you do things.
Well, yeah, and the catch is, as a freelancer, and most illustrators in comics are freelancers, even if they're working for a company. You get the assignment, but you have to make your own deadlines. You have to know exactly the calculation of how long each page would take you, and then you have to chart it out over the course of like each day, each week, each month.
Mhm. And be prepared for editing.
You mean like if they edit or your own
So
editing?
if it's self-published, that's different. But in the industry, be prepared for someone to say, "We need you to redo that."
Right.
'Cause,
Yeah.
you know what I mean. It's like since you're familiar with video, it's like reshoots. We need
Right.
reshoots, so it's the same thing in comics that we need these pages to say something else or to be something else.
Well,
So
yeah. I mean, I deal with that with freelancing projects because one of my specialties that I moved towards in the last few years is helping other indie creators create their comics. And I've worked with other clients where they give me a script and they sometimes have edits. Where I usually prefer the one-off, like either like a comic book ad or something where I could charge more. Because if I do a comic book ad as opposed to like a 22-page story, I usually get a better rate. Because a comic book ad for a small company, whether it's like a doctor's office or like some manufacturing plant that's running an ad, they could pay up to a couple thousand for one page, and it's a much better working rate
well, yeah, and then you
than.
get one page as opposed to
Yeah.
22 pages for much less.
Yeah, and then it's tough for indie creators, and it's a tough juggling act too, because even during that time that I was making Big Boss Comic on Instagram, I was still serving other clients. So I was working on my own, which wasn't really that demanding when you think about it. What's 5 panels, you know,
Mhm.
uh, and some plotting to do on your own during the course of a week. But I was working on other clients' work, and yeah, they come back with feedback, and you have to be prepared for that. But I learned over the years to really pay attention and reread their directions and ask questions to save time later. So that's one of my skills. Like I got invited to a freelance project recently because I don't bid as much anymore because I have some recurring clients and some bigger budget clients that just keep me on retainer. And I got invited to one on guru.com recently, and it was just kind of one poster, a few $100 for it was like a wedding gift. And they wrote the instructions, provided image uh, reference, and there was no edit on the preliminary and no edit on the final. And I did it like they said, like in their original description, they said, oh, if you finish it within 3 weeks, that's great, because the wedding's a while away. I did it within like, I think the second or third day it was done, so it was like, because I got to, as a freelancer, you got to make the money.
Yeah, it's
But
it's
it was the point is like it's satisfying because you could avoid a lot of headaches later if you really pay attention to what they want and you reread it and you make sure like you check all the boxes.
yeah, exactly. It's like when I would read a script, I would read the script one full time to see how much I enjoy it, right?
Hmm.
So my first read is always, do I like this story, right?
Hmm.
If I don't, I don't, and I'll just do the work, right? But if I do, then then my mind starts, wandering to, okay, now I could do this, and if I know the writer well enough that they give me, does my writer want it strictly to be the way they write it on the page, or are they welcoming my, my creativity, right? There's a reason why you decided to work with me.
Yeah.
So being that you decided to work with me, there's something about my aesthetic that you like. So how do I take what you've given me and take it to the next level, right? All the best artists know how to do that. That was,
Yeah.
we mentioned Tim Sale. Tim Sale worked really well with Jeff Loeb when Jeff Loeb could provide him a script, and Jeff Loeb already knows how Tim thinks. So therefore they could do a lot of projects together.
Yeah.
Right. Same thing with a Jim Lee and a Scott Williams, artist / inker, or Scott, John Remedia Jr., Scott Hanna. I'm just throwing these names out, that they're good collaborative teams because the one person kind of already knows what the other one's thinking.
Right.
But in the freelance world, you are your own person. You are the person that trying to sell the product. So one of the hardest things I could only imagine is getting someone who is apprehensive convinced that you're the right person for the job, or if you're not. So what are some of the tools you use to kind of like to pitch people ideas of what you can do for them as a freelancer?
Well, what I use to like sell somebody that's unsure, well, the first is like most of the projects that I've had are ones that are online. When I first meet clients, those are kind of the safest projects to have because in most cases they'll list the budget that they have, and then you can assess based on the budget that they list and the scope of the project, how much they know about the worth of such a project, and then if there's room for negotiation. So I mean, you always have to sell them because you're competing against other people. So in the book, I have a template, and so I recommend this template where it's like it's several lines that open with, I'm perfect for your project. This is why. These are examples. I'm gonna deliver such project within this time frame, and I'm ready to start today. Why don't you choose me today? So I have everything from like qualifying myself, telling them that I'm perfect, showing them work only related to what they actually need. I don't waste their time with anything that's not related. I wouldn't even talk to them if I wasn't a perfect fit like I believe I am, So that's part of it. You have to evaluate what you're looking at and what maybe your writer needs, and to see if you're actually a fit. It's a matchmaking situation. Because you have to work with that person, so you have to actually be a fit realistically. So then I sell them through that. I sell them through the fact that I have actually analyzed what they've written or what they've described as needing, and then I visualize also myself completing the project, so they could tell that because I build on that template, and sometimes I spend half an hour, sometimes even more on a proposal, and then if there's a chance that maybe they don't come across it, but it's not time wasted for me, because when they do, they immediately realize that this person has actually considered everything that I need, and they're trying. It's like, even if there's something slightly missing, they see that I really believe in their project and I can complete it.
That's good advice. Let's talk a little bit about a book that I found that you have that someone's able to read online, and that is Restless.
Yeah.
Right. This is a novel that you written. Talk to me a little bit about this novel, about a real artist's career and love life.
Yeah, this novel is only available at masterpieceartschool.com. It's like a free download, and I have the first 10 chapters uploaded there. And it's my upcoming novel. I'm actually in the process of rewriting it. It's a fiction, but it's also a follow-up to my nonfiction, It's a Living. And it's based on real events. um, and it's based on my career in Ottawa several years back, as I'm having, like, I mean, it's a fictional account. But it's based on that period of my life where I was working towards a solo show and trying to land a solo show, dealing with a variety of different clients and dating and trying to find love and a relationship. So I've taken that experience. I I saw in it when I did the outline that there was kind of a hero's journey. You know, there's like the goal of one trying to grow as a person and offer something valuable to a partner and finding love, and you need growth to be able to actually have a healthy relationship. And that's part of the thing that the character struggles with. And and then his natural ambition to take the next steps in his career. He too is a freelancer, like I am, and like I was at that period. And he's what he wants to be is a fine artist. He wants to have a show, and he wants the validation of that show. So it's about that. It's about a young man trying to find love and success and navigating the art world.
A very coming to age story, as we'll call it, right?
Yeah.
All right. So there, that's that. You could definitely pick it up. All you have to do is in masterpieceartschool.com, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all you have to do, you just enter your information so you could read the book.
Yeah. You just sign up. It's just to sign up, and then you read it. Now I'm rewriting it, so you know what you read there. I mean, I think the plot is the same, but by the time I finished the book, I know these chapters will be rewritten.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a novelty while it's still up now to compare it to the final product. And I've already changed some things, including the opening scene.
Sweet. So let's take a look at some of your artwork, right? So I saw this piece. I thought it was beautiful. In fact, I love your fine artwork, like what you do with paints and your choice of colors. Um, what made you think about when you're using colors? What are you thinking about as far as the color spectrum goes? Like, for example, why would you use that blue in the far right as opposed to using it in other places, and why in that spot? What was the thought process in creating the art that you have? And we could talk about this piece in particular, and there's a few more there that we have.
Sure, I have a unique process for this, and there's actually a course about it at masterpieceartschool.com. It's the mixed media illustrations course, and there's a video about the process of this. And all the pieces in that course are done in this way. And the way is this: I usually take a much larger piece of Bristol paper, like thick quality mixed media paper, and I dilute a bunch of acrylic paint, and I splash about, and then I cut those into smaller pieces, 6x9, sometimes 5x8, very small, kind of greeting card size. And I go photograph things. Like this was a walk that I took with a couple of friends, and I got one of my friends to just walk up ahead and sit on a bench. And I took a photograph of her. And then I took that photograph and try to match it with the abstract splashes that were on these pages. And I chose this piece because there was the red and the blue, and it matched the horizon. That, like, she was kind of overlooking this hill, and then there's water. So it matched that, and I chose it for those reasons. And when I was splashing about, and when I cut those smaller pieces of paper out of the larger, I try to find these thicker parts of the paint just for texture. So thank you, Didi. So I look for these nuances of color, and then I try to match it with the subject. So it's just a fun process. I like making either landscapes or figurative work out of abstract. I like to just look at the shapes. It's almost like a Rorschach. You look at the shapes and you bring up hopefully something beautiful.
Yeah, it is beautiful. This is definitely something I could see framed in the wall, and you go someplace, it's part of their fine art. I know, and I saw some of your work is huge, so you do use big canvases for some of your work. I saw, so
Yeah, I used to more.
Mhm.
You know, where Restless is based, which was back in Canada, like maybe 12 years ago. Um, I used to work a lot larger scale. I had an apartment, and then I had a studio out in the country at my father's place, and I worked like the largest pieces in that show were 96 by 120, which is about 10 by 12 feet. So
Wow, I can't even fit that in my apartment.
no, I don't work that large anymore, and that's why I kind of work on paper. But
Yeah.
you see that sculpture behind me?
Yeah, let me remove the image for a second so we can see it a little better. Yes,
Yeah.
I see it now.
Yeah, so that sculpture behind me, that's one of my pieces. That was for a show in Vegas. So
Let's
yeah,
take a look at another beautiful piece of artwork that you have there. I want to say Central Park. Am I right?
yeah. This is Bow Bridge.
Yes, I saw it and I immediately knew exactly what it was. It's like it's Central Park. This one's a little different though. So talk to me a little bit about this piece because it's not as abstract as the previous one that we saw. This one's a little more realistic in style, but there is still some elements of
Thanks.
abstractness.
Great choice, Izzy, because this is actually a digital painting done with the Procreate,
Mhm.
and it's actually part of an upcoming course uh, at Masterpiece Art School. And the course is going to be called Digital Plein Air Painting with Procreate. So yeah, basically, I have a series of these that I've done. Some in Central Park, some cloisters, a few different parks throughout New York. I would set up and then just observe and create these digital works. I mean, that's really the process. I have when I present these examples in the course, you see the playback, and then I comment what brushes I'm using,
Mhm.
uh, things that I consider in terms of composition. So, like here on the left side, there's the green foreground. So, and then there's like the black tree in on the top right that kind of frames the bridge. So these are considerations that I make, and in a lot of situations when you're out and about and drawing from nature, not everything is exactly like this. You actually have to force the perspective in a way. You have to observe this bush in front of you and kind of like maybe it's not actually that close, and you have to bring it in a bit,
Mhm.
and create this nice frame. And then the little story, and on the bridge there's like a little couple that are embracing in the distance. So yeah, these are things that I like to have
Mhm.
fun with.
No, it's gorgeous, and I felt that it was a digital image because there was something about it that looks very different, but at the same time, it's still equally as great as the actual paint. Right? You could tell there's times you could tell the difference. There's times you can't tell the difference.
Hmm.
This is one of those situations. I think I immediately noticed it when I saw the sky with that white
Yeah, the
cloud.
sky gives it away.
The sky kind of gives it away, but at the same time, it's still beautiful use of color. Very fall, but with a
Yeah,
splash of spring. That's how I see, because you do have those little spring colors that are still populating within the foreground with the grass in particular, but in the back, it very much reminiscence of a beautiful September day.
yeah,
Or
it was last fall. Yeah, it was great colors this past season in Central Park because for many years there weren't really such really nice
Mhm.
kind of cliche colors
Yeah.
in Central Park. So it really hit well.
Let's take a look at some more fine art. I saw these two particular
Yeah.
pieces here, and then um, first let's talk about the woman, and
Yeah.
then we'll talk about the statue. So
Yeah,
let's.
that's my friend Yulia on the left. And she was the one that was sitting on the bench.
She's the bench girl.
Yeah. This was a tough one because I had to work on the likeness of her. And it's a very tough medium because I'm working with a mixture of watercolor paint and ink and brush ink and whiteout. So I use a whiteout pen, and it's not very forgiving at all. And then also I had this stroke like right down her face there, um, and I wanted that there, and it was near impossible to color over that. And I needed to put her eyes in the right location, that they couldn't be too far to the left because that would throw off the composition, because you almost still have to use the rule of thirds. So it's really like her, I guess her left eye is right in the center of the page. So there was a lot of kind of considerations with that one. It's not an easy piece to create, but it turned out pretty close to what she looks like. And
What I specifically like, there's two things I like. I like the splashes. I've always liked splashes because, again, with splashes, they're unpredictable in how they're going to come out. But when they come out well, it's perfect. Like, this is a excellent use of the splashes that come out. The other thing that strikes to me is your lighting, which I'm really liking the lighting, because you're not taking you're definitely not taking the rule of outlining her face. So, in particular, right underneath her eye, you see that there's white, but there's no line to bring in the weight. The weight's kind of brought in there through her cheekbone. And I like that, and I like it specifically in the neck and her collar as well. That white that's there. It's a very good composition in the sense of you don't need to outline the image for it to pop out like some people do. Like, a lot of cartoonists in particular, they have those heavy lines to accentuate the depth. Here you don't need them because the colors are doing the work for you, and I think that makes it even more exciting to look at, the fact that it's popping out without the need of you having to like make your eye pull to it, which I think it's beautiful to look at. And that stroke is just it's so interesting to see it, that blue stroke. But it brings character to the image and what it means and things like that. So love it, absolutely love it. The other one I love is the anatomy. To me, it was more about the anatomy in the image, which is obviously a statue. Also in Central Park. I'm trying to remember where the statue is.
No, this is something I found online. I would guess it's something that is in one of those fountains in Rome or something. But I just found it online. It was black and white.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about this one in particular.
This one was a lot easier to create. And both of these, I believe, are in that same tutorial about mixed media illustrations. So this one was easier because I was working from a black and white photograph, and I think this was pretty much the crop that was in the photograph. It was just a black and white piece, and there wasn't anything too dynamic happening in the background in terms of the splashes. Because again, like what you saw in the splashes, even in the portrait of my friend Yulia here, those existed before, So then I had a piece with all these wild splashes and a blue streak in it, and that's the piece of paper that I chose to put that face on. So with this one, I figured there wasn't anything too dynamic, and you see actually on the left shoulder, his right shoulder, there's actually some pencil marks. So I think I started to draw something else. It wasn't working, so I did this, and then it wasn't really like that complicated of a study for me. It was just something simple where the original subject already did the hard work for me. And all I had to do was just relax and use the natural skills that I developed over years of life drawing to just copy from a photograph.
Yeah. And here's what I'm noticing is that the cross hatching, which is usually done with blacks, is actually done with the whites. Am I right? That you did a lot of this
Yeah, some
cross
of it,
hatching
yeah,
with the
like
white.
the top set of abs.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's like I'm scratching in with the whiteout.
Hmm. Yeah, because I personally love drawing on dark colors to accentuate the brightness when you draw white. So just like with like I use white out too on occasions, and I try to be as creative as I can, right? Whether I use like a toothbrush or something like that to kind of make a design, splattering is a toothbrush. You use that a lot. But in particular, I like doing that with the white out in particular, to kind of say what happens if I put white out. One of the things I love drawing on is on brown paper
Mm-hmm.
too, like so that you could do that kind of stuff, let it stand out with the highlights. So this is a great piece. So
Thanks.
let me remove this so we could get talking a little bit about the Masterpiece Art School. So talk to me a little bit about Masterpiece Art School.
Well, it actually started out in Canada, and I continued it here, and now it's online. So when I was an artist in Canada, I was originally starting in cafes. I was showing artwork and selling artworks and cafes, bars. I'd have like tables at raves. I was like the only guy not drinking. I would just have a table and sometimes do a live painting overnight, and everybody's just high around me. And occasionally I'd sell some pieces. So, when I first started, like, first kind of job as a freelancer that I got out in the world, besides just bidding online, was teaching. So I started to teach at this community center, which I taught for many years, and then I taught several private schools throughout Ottawa, Canada. Uh, and then the city, I taught for the city in different stints. And then there came a time where I moved to the suburbs, and it was like a 35-minute drive each morning to teach at that community center, which was good, consistent money. And then I started to teach more in my area at a private art school. And at one point, I was just kind of having trouble getting paid because they changed. Like, what ended up happening is, like, it was managed by this really nice religious couple, and they were sweet, and they ran it really, really well. And then the city, because it was a city center, the community center, the city said, "Hey, they're making money from this. Why don't we take it over?" And sure enough, they mismanaged it, and they ran that couple out. It was quite a scene,
Well, that's a shame.
Yeah, it was really tragic. And then anyway, so then they had this accountant that nobody could ever reach. And so before, every other week I'd get a paycheck, and it was just waiting for me in the office. And then so one day, several days in a row, several seasons in a row, it wasn't there. So I said, screw it. Why don't I just start my own art school? And then I had a brick and mortar in Canada, and it was a very modest operation because it was just me. I ran my own curriculum based on the curriculum that I developed over the years at those many schools. And I had like classes for kids, 6 to 13. And I had painting classes for adults. So the kids' classes were drawing and painting and cartooning, very, very popular. And then I had the adult classes in painting with acrylics. I had some teenage classes for illustration. And then I had on Saturdays, I would teach like one-on-one portfolio development for some students that I had that were either going into a specialty arts high school or trying to get into college. So I had that. And actually during the week, my classes were typically only on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So it was a nice little business. And then I closed it down when I moved to the States. and I just kept it online. And for a while, I think I still had the website, masterpieceartschool.ca at the time,
Mm-hmm.
but then I changed it a few years ago to .com. And most of the courses that I was teaching were online, and they were published on Udemy and Skillshare. And I still have some older courses there. But now I'm consolidating everything to a Masterpiece Art School. I've got a lot of new content there currently, and then like the same equal amount that's unpublished in the background that I'm building.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever you see at the website currently in terms of content, there's that same amount that's like in the background that I'm constantly updating to get it ready to publish.
That's great.
So,
Yeah, no, it sounds like you've done a lot of work, especially for your branding, for your work, to the point that you now are you are an author of your book It's a Living, and a new book that's coming out that I think we're going to debut right
yeah,
now. So
I think it's official.
it's official. Or
Yeah.
as we like to call it, the hipsters, it's a fish.
Now we should say that it's not out yet,
No,
and it's only scheduled to come out by early September, maybe late August.
mhm.
Um,
So what we're doing is we're giving a preview to this book, right?
Yeah.
Easy and fun cartooning techniques for drawing comics and manga. All right.
Yeah.
So I was looking through the book earlier today, and one of the things that I really did like is that you pretty much go through multiple genres, not just in drawing, comics or manga. You go into animation. I saw that you mentioned Squash's Stretch, and I was like, oh yeah, that's animation talk right there. So,
Yeah.
talk to me a little bit about this book. Right now, the version that I have here is about 100 pages
Yeah.
of a whole bunch of different styles that people could learn. Well, go ahead and talk to me a little bit about this book while I flip through some of the pages
Sure.
so people could see them.
So the first thing to know is that it's comprised of like the courses that I developed over the years at my school, the cartooning courses for comics, and all the things that I've learned in drawing comics for other freelancers and for myself. And I've made each page dense with information. Like this page here is just these supplies. But as you go along, each page is like chock full of pinnable pages. Like it's like each one would be, if you need like a reference for anatomy, there's one for that. So the way it starts is it starts with heads. Then we're drawing bodies, then we're drawing expressions, facial expressions, then gestural expressions. Then I think we cover anamorphic characters.
Anamorphic character.
Yeah. So in between, I had to utilize some of my animation training, because one of the exercises is the cartooning exercise that I got from animation. It's a fun thing. I mean, the title is Easy and Fun. So these are fun little exercises thrown in, and quick little tips that are easy to apply as an illustrator to develop more complicated drawing, like anatomy. So there's advanced, like this is fairly advanced. And then there's like kind of intertwined with simple. So it builds through characters, and then it gets into like drawing tech. It covers perspective. And there's a big section on perspective. I didn't even want to make it that big. Initially, in my classes, I would only cover 1 point, 2 point, and 3 point perspective. And I had an artist friend, when I showed him a copy, he said, what about 4 and 5 point perspective? So I put in 4 and 5 point perspective, but it's just a page. So I have even that, which you could use for like fisheye and such. There's animals. This is this page, and there's a nice page. I think the one after this I like this page a lot. It's like just horses. So
for me, animals is it's a pain in the butt drawing animals for me. because it is different. Like you got the shapes are different, and when you don't, one thing I always tell people in particular is that draw the things you don't like for practice,
Yeah.
right? Instead of drawing the things you like, because you could draw the things you like and you could get really good at it, but there's going to be a time that you're going to need to know how to draw this.
Yeah.
In some time, it doesn't mean that you have to draw it every day, but you got to keep the skills fresh. You got to continue to work on it, or else you become stagnant.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's the anamorphic characters.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's cartooning, and there's a section, I think we passed it on caricatures. So
Yeah.
that I put in there because sometimes in cartooning you have to draw caricatures of other people, but then you could apply it in conjunction with It's a Living, where you can make a living as a caricature artist if you need to. And I did that for many years. That was a big part of my business, where every now and again I would get booked for like weddings, bar mitzvahs, and corporate events, especially in Vegas. They paid well and they tipped well, because in Vegas, everywhere they tip well. So there you could get paid like one up to $150 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And it's good. Sometimes I would get booked for a 6-hour gig plus tips. That's a great night, like I'm good for, at that budget, I was definitely satisfied for the week, so then after perspective, I get into, I think, drawing techniques. And then finally, we're building up the whole skill set that we're eventually building up towards is drawing comics. So I get into storytelling eventually. Finally, it's kind of like the end focus of it, and everything from composition to I don't know, covers, scripting. There's a page on script formatting. Mm-hmm. So I mean, really, I try to cover everything from beginning to end, like in terms of like you're growing. So each step, it's carrying you into the direction to develop the skills that you would need to be the most well-rounded comics and manga artist.
Yeah.
Or writer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's always good, especially if you're a writer, if you're watching this as a writer, it's always important to understand what us artists have to do in comics to make your story come alive.
Mm-hmm.
You could have the most wild imagination, but you also have to understand that your artist has to ride along with you on that ride, and you have to pay attention to when your artist says, I don't think we can make that happen. Where people say, I want to have this here, and everybody thinks they're Alan Moore. I don't know if you ever heard about an Alan Moore script and how that looks like.
No, I know what they look like.
So everybody thinks they're Alan Moore sometimes when they're starting. So just I've always gravitated towards a writer who is willing to understand their artists more than telling their stories sometimes, because they want to tell their stories, but they want to make sure that their artist is comfortable with their story, or else that's probably not the right artist for them.
The trick for writing for artists in comics is that you have to think like an artist, because you're actually directing the shots. You have to actually describe the shots, not exactly what's in your mind or what's in the character's mind. You have to describe the shots. So I think a lot of writers make the mistake of describing one panel, for viewing actions from two different cameras, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the tough ones, where I have the description where you're seeing the front and the back of the character that's in the script, and I'm like, how am I supposed to depict that? And actually, if you go back to this, one more. I guess one more. One more. There we go. This one. This was kind of a similar thing. This is a fun example because I had the description from the client, and you're supposed to see our main character on the ground sketching while all this stuff is going around. And in another room in the kitchen, there's 3 other characters, one serving and 2 playing cards. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, how, what angle am I going to, get this at, and also show our main character as the main one, right? Because I could choose the angle from the kitchen, but then those characters are the main characters. So I had to do some thinking, and the first green drawing at the top is my first sketch of like just kind of figuring out where everybody's laid out. And I knew I wasn't going to use it. It wasn't like going to be like, oh, this is going to be the drawing. But a novice artist, that's what they would settle on, So I used that just to figure out where everything is. I knew they were watching TV, and there's like, in the original, it was supposed to be Soul Train that they were watching, and the logo was used. But here I replaced it. So then once I knew where everybody was, then the next drawing was figuring out the shot, the angle, to be able to fit everybody in.
Yeah, because you could have done the image from the perspective from the television's perspective, right? But then you would have lost the people that were in the background. They're in the background playing cards, and if you would have done it from that perspective of the television, obviously, based on what you just said, that they were supposed to watch Soul Train, so there has to be a way for them to watch television.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this piece and I see that it's a period piece because I see
it's in the 70s.
Yeah, I see the television. I see what appears to be a VCR, and of course their clothing is dressed up in that garb of the 70s. So
like
not only did you have to think,
VCR.
So not only did you have to think about placement, you also have to think about what the time period looked like. And so I take it there was some research involved in trying to find out how things looked during that time. That is a large television, by the way.
Yeah. It's just closer to us.
I know. Because I'm just thinking, because I think about when I was young, how a 19-inch TV was considered a large television, if you remember, right? 25 inches was large, and now 25 inches is very small when you really think about it in like in a monitor screen. So it's just weird how times change. But this is a perfect example of taking everything that you learn and putting it into one thing. So great stuff. And that book is scheduled to come out sometime in late September, early October. That's the projected time frame.
Like, maybe late August.
Late August? Okay, so that's the projected time frame.
I'm trying to figure out, I just ordered a couple of proof copies just to double check everything. And once I get those and look them over, I'm probably going to set a pre-launch date. And also, I'm working on a tutorial for my website that goes with the book. So I'm figuring out when that's launching, so that I could ideally launch it with the book. So then you can have the course where I explain things more thoroughly, and then you could look at you could order the book either as a download, which you could get from Masterpiece Art School, or it'll be like on Kindle and paperback and hardcover.
Great. It has been a blast talking to you, Chris.
Oh, thanks.
Where can people find you?
Instagram, Masterpiece Art School, and masterpieceartschool.com is the website. And Big Boss Comic on Instagram is still up there. So I do post on stories. That's kind of like my more social one. And that's it. You could, reach me through there. I'm around.
Yeah, I see you in all the conventions. Every time I'm in a convention, you seem to be following me.
Oh, I'm scheduled to be at Eternal Con. I'm going to do a workshop.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Okay,
I'll be there. I'm thinking about doing a panel, so I'm just waiting to hear from them. So we'll see what happens. But I will definitely be in Eternal Con. You will see me there. We will both butt heads together.
Nice.
So that's going to be fun. I'm just going to put you back in the lobby so we could wrap things up. But thank you, Chris, for joining us. I really do appreciate your time. And
thanks, Izzy.
Keep up the great work, man. I love looking at some of this stuff.
Thank you.
Take care, man. So, guys, there you have it. That was our illustrator, artist, author, teacher, Chris Aluas. I hope I got it right. Again, thank you, and to Didi, congratulations once again. You are winning the Aquaman sketch cover. We will talk. If you have my Instagram, please chat to me through Instagram and let me know that a way that we could find a way for you to get the book once I am ready to give it to you. Of course, I need some time to get the sketch in, but I think you're gonna love it, especially because my mind is already working on what this sketch is gonna look like. So, congratulations once again, Didi, for winning the sketch comic book. Again, as always, if you need to get some comics, if you want to get some variants, our good friends at Comic Exposure has provided me with a promo code. Use the promo code IzzyVerse for 15%, not 5, not 10, 15% off, guys. Excuse me, 15% off your books. Again, we are going to have more giveaways coming up, but some of those giveaways were given to me by Comic Exposure. I'm really excited to provide you guys with those giveaways. Again, please like and subscribe to the channel, the IzzyVerse. It's on YouTube. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I got TikTok. But make sure you hit that subscribe for YouTube. That's where it helps me the most. With that said, guys, I will see you next time. We'll always chat through Instagram. I have a lot of new stuff coming up in the horizon. I'm looking forward to the Obi-Wan review that's coming up next week. Your poll list will come up on Sunday, and I'm in a very special location for that one. So that's going to be fun. There's some more shows coming up. You got Umbrella Academy, Stranger Things Part 2. We got AEW Forbidden Door happening as well. I'm really pumped for that one. So be on the lookout for those shows that are coming up soon. I'll see you guys next time on the IzzyVerse. Take care. Bye.